Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another, not Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. I'm getting in that mode already. Adobe XD Masterclass. My name's Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and I hope you're all doing well on this fancy Friday afternoon. If you are tuning in here live on Behance, let me know in the chat who you are and where you're tuning in from. If you're on Twitter, hello, Twitter people. Can't see chat over there, but if you do want to chat along, behance.net/Adobe Live. We've got Norsh and Umacorn and Lena and Laura, Amanda. First time seeing a live event. Welcome, Amanda. Everyone in the chat, put a little wavy emoji for Amanda to welcome her in. We've got Cody, Cornell, Anita from Toronto. We've got, I did see Megan in there from somewhere in the Edmonton region, I think. Both of us are our hockey teams. Just disappointed this year. So we're both crying hockey tears. If anyone else is from Toronto, I know Anita's from Toronto. It's been a rough week. I'm still recovering. But anyways, Hillary from Salt Lake City. I have not been there, but I've been meaning to go there. I think we have an office somewhere in that region. So one day I'll make it out to Salt Lake City. All right. So let's go ahead and hop over to my screen and we are going to get going. So I am on the App Store, the Apple iOS App Store, and there's a reason I'm on this App Store, is because I came across this application not too long ago. It's called Bestla. Very clever. It's a companion app for your Tesla, which is wonderful, right? I love that cars are having these, smart technologies and there's APIs that you can tap into. It's a fantastic application. Design-wise, I don't want to be too mean because this was developed, I believe, by a one-person team, and this person is a developer. So they're not naturally a designer, right? Which is totally fine and totally understandable. I love the fact that developers can make apps like this, amazing apps like this, and, just push it out to the world. And it has almost a 5-star rating. By the way, this is not, the developer has no idea I'm doing this. Hopefully it'll help him or her out. I think it's a him, but who cares? Hopefully it'll help them out. What we want to do today is start redesigning this experience. Because looking at it and having used the application, it could use some help. A little bit of UX, a little bit of UI, a little bit of polish here and there. It'll be fun. Robert says, managed to join from the start this time. Robert, welcome and thanks for joining. All right. And last week or the week before, I posted out this tweet that I often have a desire of wanting to redesign apps that are very well developed, but could use a little bit of polish on the UI side. And I'm not talking about like very large corporation applications. I don't care about those very large corporations. They have the resources to redesign their app. By the way, Vanguard, if anyone from Vanguard is watching, please, you're a multi-billion-dollar company. Your app needs help, but I'm not redesigning your app. I like helping out smaller developers, like the one who developed this Bestla app. It's a very promising application, but I would love to see it go in a little bit of a different direction UI-wise. And a large part of you said it could be helpful to developers for designers to maybe add a little bit of polish to their applications. And of course, you have to do this tastefully, right? And we're going to talk a lot about this as we go. We don't want to insult people. We don't want to say you're a terrible designer and fix it, right? That's not helpful. Redesign Google's homepage. I like Google's homepage. It's just the most simplest thing in the world. And that's all we really need, right? We don't need a cluttered homepage. It's great, right? So we're going to go ahead and do that today. So let's go ahead and hop over to Adobe XD. And, oh, it's on my other monitor. Hold on, let me find it. View. Here it is, Adobe XD. By the way, we're in June, and we haven't released a June update yet. That's all I'm going to say. All right, so here we go. We have a bunch of presets that we can start off with, and we're going to start, because this is a mobile design, we're going to start with an iPhone. We're going to go big. Some people, prefer smaller devices. I like starting big. It gives me more room to work with. Of course, things are vector, so we can zoom in and out as we need to, and everything will look great. Hello from Biston, I'm not sure where that is, but hello, Stephen. Great to see you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start off with an iPhone 12 Pro Max. A lot of words at the end of that. What just happened to iPhone 2 and iPhone 3? Those were the days. All right, so what we're going to do is, usually I start by grabbing rectangles and designing away, but I want to start doing some exploration on what this app may look like, what the branding may look like, the logo. And the logo has a nice touch to it. If we take a look, actually, you know what, we're gonna bring in some images. So I'm gonna hop over to Finder, and I do have some screenshots of this particular app. And let's go ahead and just drag them into XD. View, there they are. Now I don't want them on this artboard, but I may want them on a separate artboard so I can kind of keep track of all this stuff. So I'll just drag out an artboard like this, and maybe we'll do, I don't know, 4 and 4. Well, that's 4 and 5, but that's okay, right? They're not in any particular order, I don't believe. Of course, I could reorder them, but we're gonna take a look at some of these screens, and we're gonna pick it apart a little bit. Again, being very tasteful, because knowing that the developer of this app is not a designer, they may not know exactly what some of these terminology is, and why certain things may not work. So we have to be very tasteful about how we do this, and when we're building case studies. Is it possible to include stacks and stacks in somewhere? And absolutely. I might get to that at some point during this stream, but the short answer is yes, absolutely. You can have a stack inside of a stack as long as they're in groups or components. All right, so taking a look at this, the logo has a nice little touch to it. It incorporates a lightning bolt, which is, signifies charging into the logo. I don't completely love the way that it's used as the B, so we're gonna work on that a little bit. The home screen, which is this one over here, I believe. I like the fact that they have light and dark mode, but the home screen, when I was using it with my car, it was a little bit confusing. I didn't really know exactly what it was, and a big part of this particular experience and application is this. So it integrates really nicely with Siri shortcuts. So either from the application, you can schedule, you can create shortcuts. I think it's one of these. Maybe it's in here actually, this automation. You can activate them directly in the application, or you can do it from Siri. So knowing that this is a very big part of this experience, I think it would make sense to bring that to the homepage, at least, maybe quick shortcuts. You don't have to display all of them, but a few of them, right? And then there's this login screen, which you see after the application loads. And this one, I think, needs a little bit of user experience behind it, because I didn't realize at the beginning, I was looking for a place to register, but you actually log in with your Tesla account information, which it wasn't apparent to me at first. And I think if it's not done right, then it could potentially scare people away. You might not feel safe putting your Tesla account details inside of, this application. So we're gonna work on that a little bit. And then there's, a map for supercharging. I think this one looks pretty good. I don't have much to say about that one. The select a vehicle screen that they currently have, I think it could use some polish, maybe it'll, some visuals, just so it's not too squishy at the top. And settings. Settings are settings, right? We're not going to focus too much on that. So what I want to do first is, I'm going to name this will be the login screen. But before we get to actually building out that login screen, let's actually duplicate this artboard over, and we'll call this Explorations. There we go. And we might want to start exploring what the logo might look like and what typefaces we're going to use, which really, can definitely heighten the experience of an application. I'm going to change the background to black. I'm only going to focus on a dark version of this application, even though they have a light and dark version. The official Tesla app is dark, and I want to kind of go in that direction without replicating the Tesla, because you definitely don't want to confuse users, and Tesla might not be too happy with that. So we're gonna go in that direction, but we're also gonna pull back a little bit. All right, so what we want to do is we want to start with maybe the logo, right? You remember at the top here, it's clever. It's got a little lightning bolt. It's fun, but you may not know right away that it says Bestla, right? You might think, oh, Estla with a lightning bolt, or Lestla, right? Because it's lightning. So what we're going to do is we're going to type out something like Bestla. We're just going to use the entire word mark. Let's change this to white. And then we can start experimenting with some typefaces. So Avenir, always a very simple typeface, which is pretty nice. We can do something like Archivo Black. It's interesting. It has some nice feels to it. You know, there's Mastra. It's kind of fun, right? And they have different weights as well. So we can go nice and black. We can go heavy. Yeah, so Hillary reads it as Esla. Umacorn doesn't see the B. Wade says Zestla. That's kind of fun, like zesty. But yeah, so Mastra is a fun typeface. I love the fact that the S and the T almost line up. It's so close, but it's not there. Something like Brandon... I can't spell. There we go. Brandon Grotesque. I like this one. It's got, you know, rounded corners, but not super rounded corners. It's not very, harsh. It's got a fun feel to it. So I think I might stick with Brandon Grotesque. We might want to go black. We might want to go bold. It's hard to tell. And then right beside, maybe on the left or the right, we may want to bring in that lightning bolt. So I'm going to hop over to Nucleo, which, if you haven't caught my streams yet, Nucleo is a third-party icon manager. And if I type in Lightning, I do have the Font Awesome 6 library. It's currently in beta, but I have that loaded in here. So I'm going to copy one of those and boop, paste it. There we go. And now we have a lightning bolt, right? And we'll figure out where to put this in just a moment. But I might want to add in a little bit of color. So we have the white typeface and we have a white lightning icon right now. Now, knowing that Tesla, the brand, is on that red side, right? We might want to go in that direction with this. Now, I talked about this, I believe it was last week. You know, when you're working with very dark interfaces like we are here, there's a black background and this lightning bolt. You typically, not all the time, but you typically want to stay away from very vibrant colors because it does cause a little bit of muddiness. It's a little bit hard on the eyes. So whenever I'm working with a darker background and bright colors, I'll just pull the saturation over a little bit. And it may be difficult to really see when you're watching this live stream, but if we look at the before and then we look at the after, we can kind of see that's a little bit easier on the eyes. And it really, you know, becomes apparent when you're previewing this to an actual mobile device. You can see that in action. So I'll tweak this a little bit. And knowing I'm going to be using this particular color quite a bit in this application, I'm going to just make sure that inside of my document assets, boop, just going to add that to my colors. And I'll call this Bestla Red. Perfect. All right, so now I'm thinking probably on the right-hand side, it might look pretty good. It's almost like a period at the end of a sentence. I might want to rotate this just a little bit, just so we have the A and the lightning bolt kind of lining up. We might not want to go all the way because it's a weird angle, although it's not too bad. But I might want to just, maybe I'll make that bottom, These are things we as designers can do every day, all day, right? We can just sit here and literally rotate this at, 1 degree at a time until we're pretty happy with it, but we'll never be happy with it, right? Never. I'm working on a new video, which will be released soon, and I literally have spent 15 to 20 hours just on the assets I'm using in the video because it's a very complex design, and I'm just never happy. Just as designers, we are never happy with our work. All right. I think that could work. We might revisit this later, but I'm going to go ahead and make sure to group these two elements, or I can pop them into a component. Norsh is asking, why don't I hear the same sounds when I add assets into XD? I believe you're probably referring to boops. We should do that one day, just maybe as an Easter egg. Have some sort of audio assets, and I'll just do all of them. All right, so we have our logo, and Command and Control K to turn it into a component, or you can do it in your document assets as well. I'll call it logo. Wonderful. All right. And I'll pop it somewhere here for now. This is just the exploration page, so we're not actually, going to be using this just yet. So next, we want to really focus on the typeface. Now, we did use Brandon Grotesque in the logo. You can definitely strive away from that for things like headers and body copy. I'm going to drag out a text layer, and this is obviously going to be a little bit too large. So let's maybe drop it down to maybe 32. Looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and type out some sample copy that we would probably see inside of the application. So let's something like, let's supercharge your Tesla experience. And I believe this is actually used in the application. Or maybe it's not. Maybe I came up with that. I don't remember. I may have come up with that. I'm very clever sometimes. Or I saw it somewhere and, you know, there we go. All right, so we have that, and this is the Brandon Grotesque typeface. I'm going to duplicate this down, and let's try something like, we did try Archivo Black earlier. I like this one because it's, you know, it's very blocky, but it's also kind of gritty and futuristic. There's a lot going on with this typeface. It might be too much, but I like it. It's kind of fun. And let's try also, Dunbar is a good one. Look at that. That's fancy. And I believe they have some heavier typefaces. Bold and extra bold and ultra. That's a lot going on there. Oops. All right, that looks pretty good. And then maybe, I mean, you can't go wrong with Futura, right? Yeah. And there's also Futura PT. And then let's try one more Avenir next, maybe. And we'll bump that up as well, right? So we have quite a few. We have quite a few typefaces that we're looking at. And this is what I typically do when I'm working on designs like this is, you know, almost never will you think of a design in your mind and it'll be the right one, right? You'll always go through a process where you're looking at some have better qualities than others, and Ultra's a little extra. Yeah, I agree. I think Ultra is a little bit too much. But let me know in the chat which one you prefer. Archivo Black, Dunbar Tall, Futura PT, or Avenir Next. I'm personally leaning towards Avenir Next. Maybe I'll just drop this to maybe bold. You know, it's very simple. It's a fairly traditional typeface, but it has some nice curves to it. It's got some nice edges. It's not too extra. You know, this one up here, I really like Dunbar Tall. Might be a little bit too extra. Archivo Black, also a good one. We talked about that. Lena says either Archivo or Avenir. Brandon Grotesque is nice for the logo, but I might want to stay away from it. We've got 2 for Avenir, 1 for Futura. So again, I think I'm gonna stick with Avenir. And, you know, of course, there's a million directions we can go with this. We can also possibly, this is a good one, let's say Comic Sans. Wonderful typeface, right? Just watching the numbers of viewers, just gone. All right, so we're gonna go with Avenir, and I'm going to add this to my character styles. I haven't decided if this is the header yet, but we're gonna see. All right, I'm gonna leave these here just in case we wanna bring these in for something else. Dunbar or Avenir. Avenir, the 4th, 1, 2, 3, 4. This one is Futura. No, oh, that must have been the Comic Sans joke. One day I'm actually gonna do Comic Sans for a design, and the world will explode and the aliens will show up. Alrighty, so what we're gonna do is we're going to start the process, and this is the login screen. And just to remind some of you, the feedback I had originally is the login screen to me felt like you were logging in to this particular service's account. So you would have to register somewhere, and you would have to create an account and then log in. And I was frantically looking for a way to do that until I realized that, oh, you have to use your Tesla credentials. So I want to make that very apparent so that users, when they land here, they know. And there probably will be an extra step, but sometimes to get a better experience, you might possibly have to add in a step, right? So here's what we're going to do. I'm actually going to leave this top section a little bit blank for now, and I'll show you why in a moment. I'm going to put a line, a very mysterious line. What is going to go above that line, Howard? Maybe I just don't know yet. No, I do. We're going to put something up there. It's going to be fun, right? Okay, then down here, we want to focus on that login experience. I want to be here for Comic Sans design. It could be interesting. I'm doing a stream with Andrew Hockrattle in about a month. What day is it? Actually, a month and a bit. It's going to be a fun one. But maybe we'll use Comic Sans because, yeah, it'll be good. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start, you know, bringing in some of those typefaces, or at least one of them. And we'll do something like, oh no, I have Comic Sans because it was the last one I used. There should be, hold on, supercharge your Tesla. This is very painful. experience, right? There should be, what's it called? There should be an exception to the rule that goes to your previous typeface if it's Comic Sans or Papyrus. If the application detects that you previously used Comic Sans and then very quickly deleted it because you were joking or realized it was a bad idea, then it should go back to the other one. So in this case, Avenir next. And let's maybe center this. And oh, might just 2 lines possibly. There we go. And maybe for this header, we might want to, style it up a little bit more. So right now we have everything set to bold. Let's drop this to demi-bold. But what we might want to do is select supercharge and then bold that, or maybe even go to heavy, possibly. Ooh, that's interesting. So there's heavy, and then we've got bold. I think I can stick with heavy. We're gonna see how that looks. And the reason I'm doing this is because supercharge and supercharging is something that Tesla owners know. They see that word, oh, charging, okay, got it. So I want to focus on that, really emphasize that, just to bring some fun to this. And then possibly behind this, to emphasize it even more, maybe we'll grab a rectangle and we'll kind of highlight this. And we'll choose our lovely red, move it behind. It almost looks like, what's that one company? I'm sure many of you are like, oh, that looks like that thing. The company with they have the hat, Supreme. Almost looks like Supreme. It's not intentional, I promise, but it almost looks like Supreme. And then I'm holding down, by the way, my Command or Control key and using the arrow keys to resize by individual pixels at a time. All right, what about bold with italics? Ooh, that's an interesting idea, Alex. That could work too. I mean, there's lots of ways we can go about this, but let's say bold italic. Interesting. What about heavy italic? Do I even have that? Aha. Ooh, now it really looks like Supreme, doesn't it? I don't know. Do I want bold, italic? Oh gosh. I'm gonna stick with non-italic for now, but it's an interesting idea. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about avoiding very vibrant colors like red. In this case, I might want to just bump it up a little bit, just to add a little bit more of that color back in there, just so that the white text in the background really pops. Because if we were to drop it in saturation, then that white's going to become a little bit difficult to read, right? Duracell. Oh, it looks like Duracell too. All right, let's go ahead and group this. I'm going to call this header. And then right below this, we might want to start with our buttons. And this is a great opportunity to start using, I almost like Comic Sans for some reason. Let's not do that. I swear, it's like it burns in your memory, in your mind, and it just comes out at the worst possible times. We might want to start using components. So let's grab our rectangle. We're going to drag out a lovely component or a button. We'll round out the corners. And maybe we'll just go nice and long for these buttons. Something like that. We can also, drag out some guides if we want to make sure. We have 32, maybe 40. 40 looks okay. So we'll do 40 on each side. There we go. That's a very long button, but one thing I'll get to this in a second, but one thing you probably don't want to do, we're going to have multiple buttons. You likely on a mobile device like this, you likely don't want your buttons at different sizes because it could convey different feelings and different intentions about this screen. So we're going to keep them all consistent. I'll snap them to 40 pixels, and let's go ahead and use this color, which I did not add to my assets. It's our vibrant red, and we have our slightly toned down version for the logo. And then on top of this, we're going to go ahead and grab our text and log in with Tesla. And I'm going to talk about this in just a moment. Let's go for 24, and to make sure we can really see it, let's try bold. And I'll make sure it's centered. Snap, come on. There we go. Okay. You can also grab both layers and then use the alignment options at the top. Okay, so with this looking pretty good, I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a component. I can do that again in my document assets right here, or from the component section within your properties inspector, you can also go for, also create various states. So Alex saying 44 button height is compliant. Yes, it is. You are absolutely correct. I do have it at 63 right now. 44 would probably be a little bit too small, especially for the length of this button. But I'm pretty happy with this size, around 63. Maybe I'll even bump it up a little bit more. But we can also create various states in our properties inspector. So let's say we wanted hover won't apply, toggle we don't really need at the moment. So let's just do a regular state, and this will be outlined. And then this will be the button down below. So we will dive in here. I'm going to turn off the fill, set an outline in the properties inspector down here. Let's bump this up a little bit. 3, possibly 4. And this one might be, if you remember in these screenshots, you can also use an API refresh key that you grab from various applications that you might have pulled it from. So let's go for, let's say, Tesla API token. And this will be a secondary action. So we'll go maybe demi-bold. We don't want to go too much down. So we have our default state and we have our outline state. Now, going back to this, the reason I titled this, or typed in login with Tesla, is because the phrase login with is pretty common these days. Login with Facebook, login with Google, login with Creative Cloud, login with all these different things. So by keeping it in that realm, users might be more understanding of what exactly that is. And by taking the extra step and not just showing some login, text fields here, then I think it might help users slowly understand exactly what this experience is. Because again, I was very confused the first time I landed on that page. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to log in with. So by doing this, I think it might be a little bit easier for some users. All right, let's switch over to our outline state, and that looks pretty good. Now, one thing that this application has that I thought was really cool is right down here at the, yes, right here. It says you can enter your Tesla email, or you can enter demo to try this application out, which I thought was super cool because maybe you're waiting for your Tesla to arrive, or you don't feel comfortable just yet putting in your Tesla information and you just want to try this application out. Very few apps do this. So I want to bring that in, but I wasn't a big fan of having that inside of this email field. So instead, I think it could be nice to have it down here at the bottom. Now, to avoid over-cluttering, we might want to not have another button. We might want instead more of a text link. And from the developer's point of view, I would imagine that they would want people to log in with this app as the primary goal, which is why we have a nice bold button. The API token possibly as secondary, although these two can be the same thing, and then demo as a tertiary, right? Or secondary if these are looked at the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this section up a little bit by typing out something like or. Simple, right? And maybe I'll drop this down a little bit. Let's try 20. Demi-bold looks pretty good. And make sure to snap it in the center. We can possibly stick with white, and maybe we want like a fancy line just so it doesn't look like it's floating in the middle of this application. So with the line tool or a rectangle, switch that to white. Now, do we want to go all the way to the end? Maybe not. So I'm going to bring this back a little bit. And maybe do I want to bump up? One looks pretty good. A little bit difficult to see, so maybe 2. All right. And then we'll just duplicate one over. There we go. And we've got this little or section. It could work, right? Group, whoops, that's 3D transforms. This will be or. And right below, demo the experience. And this will be the link that people will click on if they want to demo it before they actually try this application. So this one, it's more in line with these buttons at the top. So we're going to make sure that the size is about the same, 24 pixels. Demi-bold could work. We probably don't want to go much lower than that. And we'll make sure that things line up. All right. I think I'm digging it. Looks good. So at this point, we have a lot of information down at the bottom. This is a good opportunity to use stacks. So if I select all this information down here, I'm going to group it, Command and Control G, and I'll just call this group login. And then over within the properties inspector to the right, I can enable a stack. And Cornell said I make the O in or lowercase. So that's a good point. I can try that in a second. So I'm going to turn on a stack, and because the layers inside of this group are laid out vertically, it automatically determined that this should be a vertical stack. And of course, over to the right, I can enter in, let's say, I don't know, maybe I want 24 pixels in between each, possibly. In some cases that might work, in some cases might be too much. So maybe I'll just dive in here. Maybe I'll manually override this one. Yeah, that could work, potentially. All right, let's try what Cornell mentioned. Or. Possibly. Now this is another opportunity to use a stack. So we can have a stack in a stack, like someone was talking about earlier, is, you know, this or section, I might want to just enable a stack here. It did lay this out horizontally because the layers inside were going horizontally. So if I did need to change this to how about, which wouldn't make any sense, probably not a great user experience, but you'll notice that the lines on the right and the left, they automatically adjusted, which is great. And even something simple like changing the casing, right? Or it also adjusted the lines, which is fun. Yeah, I think that could work, Cornell. We can always go back, make changes later. Let's see, someone saying from Bangladesh, learning lots of learning for your Adobe XD Masterclass. Thank you very much. You're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Now, while we're down in this section here, oh yeah, by the way, we enabled a stack. That's what we're doing. We enabled a stack on this group. I should probably name these buttons. And, you know, just in case we wanted to switch this up a little bit, maybe we noticed that people are logging in more with the API token. We can just drag it up, right? Or demo the experience might be on top and then or, right? So very easily you can just enable a stack and swap things around. I'm gonna leave it at this for now. And of course, if you needed to add content, maybe something in the middle here, I don't know why you would do that, but you can do that, right? And everything below pushes around nicely. You can rearrange this and go on with your day. Now, while we're down in this area, it may not apply much, but right down here at the bottom, on many devices, especially iPhones, you have a home indicator that kind of just floats there, and when you want to go back to the home screen, you just swipe up, right? You want to make sure that there's nothing down up below that, because users won't be able to get to it. And I see this mistake a lot in designers and developers who are fairly new, which is fine, totally good, right? But just keep these things in mind. So it's a line like this, and it's a few pixels tall, corners are rounded, and it's probably a little bit longer than that, but it sits right about here on your phones. If you have an iPhone, turn it on and take a look at that home indicator. Can you see it on the home screen or here? Oh, I got a voicemail, okay. Can you see it on the lock screen? Let's see. You can't, so it's right down here. You probably can't see that, but it's right down there at the bottom. It just kind of sits there, but just make sure that nothing is, I mean, ideally, probably about, 30 pixels, right down there. So you want nothing down there that users would have to click on or tap on. All right, so this is looking not bad. Not great, but not bad, right? Now we do have this section at the top that I mentioned we're gonna get back to a little bit later. And I think this could be a fun opportunity to add a little bit of fun to this application, but also introduce users to this application, because there probably won't be a full-blown onboarding experience. At this point, the users have downloaded it, they kind of know what they're getting into, but they might want to see a little bit of fun as they're navigating through the login screen and maybe the vehicle select screen. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to bring in some illustrations. So I've got these from Adobe Stock. They're just cute little illustrations, and I'm actually going to drag them directly into Adobe XD. Here we go. And that's loading. Perfect, okay. So we have these wonderful illustrations from Adobe Stock, completely vector. Just drag that Illustrator file directly in, and we may want to just start grabbing some of these illustrations. So I'm going to dive into these groups, and we've got this little guy here, and his little, oops, so the speech bubbles are separate. So I'm going to make sure just to ungroup some of these things, because we don't really need groups, do we? I'm gonna ungroup this. Perfect. So I'm gonna grab, whoops, these two here. I'm gonna copy that, and back over here, we're going to paste. And because this is vector, we can very easily make this as big or as small as we want, and it still looks nice and crispy, right? And I might want to flip this as well. Perfect. Now, you might be noticing that he's kind of in the way, right? Now, even if I'm going to group this, and I'll just call this left. Even if we grab this group and popped it all the way at the bottom, so this person is behind the text and the buttons, it's still kind of in the way, right? So in this case, I might want to just grab a rectangle and just draw one out. Make sure to sample that background color and make sure to move that to the back. And I use the Command and Control left square bracket key to go back, and then it's Command and Control and Shift left square bracket key to go all the way to the back, and then Command and Control right square bracket key to go one up. And you can also see those shortcuts if you right click, and there we go. So send to back, bring forward, and there are the shortcuts as well. Right, so now we have our guy kind of hidden back there. Maybe I'll move this down a little bit, bring this down a touch, and just kind of finesse this all into place. Now, going back to what we were talking about earlier about our lovely home indicator at the bottom, you also have to keep in mind that we have a notch at the top, the good old notch. It's getting smaller slowly, but you know, it's about 45, 46 pixels from the top. And this area here, which I'm going to just highlight there in pink, you don't want anything up there as well, because right in the middle, you know, the whole thing isn't covered, but right in the middle, like somewhere right about here, you've got the notch, and nothing back there will be seen. So don't put anything back there that you want your users to see, so keep that in mind. So in this case, maybe I'll just move him over a little bit, and his speech bubble is currently kind of floating back there. So I'm gonna just grab it, and because it's, you know, all vector, I can just move it down a little bit. And it's okay if it's popping up a little bit up there. I can also move him down a touch as well. There we go. All right, let's get rid of this. Or maybe I can change this to a lighter color just so we can see it, but it's not blaring in our faces. And then we might want one more illustration. So let's hop over, and this one looks fun. Paste. Make that nice and large. I'm going to group her. This will be the one on the right. And then for the speech bubble, we might just want to move it over a little bit. And I know right away that looking at this color here, it's going to be a little bit difficult to work with. So I might want to just change the color a touch, maybe darken it a little bit, or just move it more into the purples, because that light pink, whether you have, you know, black text or white text, it's going to be a little bit muddy. So we'll do something like this, and now we have these two people looking at their devices. And I think this is going to be perfect, because what we want to do is, since a big part of this application is all about shortcuts and very quickly being able to control your car, maybe have these people say something, right? The space at the top and bottom is known as the safe area. Yes, absolutely. And Apple and Google both have fantastic documentation and guidelines all about that. And they also have UI kits for Adobe XD that allow you to just drop the the notch and the home indicator and stuff directly on your projects. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to type something like unlock Sparky. Maybe that's the name of this person's car. Whoops. There we go. Now we do have the Avenir typeface that we've been using for our headers and our buttons. We may want to mix it up a little bit. This is spoken text, so it might be a little bit more fun. It might be a little bit more italic. So we might want to go for something like Snicker, which is another font or typeface from Adobe Fonts. And this one, because we're on this yellow background, let's go for a nice black or dark gray. Adjust the line height a little bit. There we go. All right. Looking a little large, possibly. Maybe I'll drop it down to 20. Because I might want this guy to be a little bit smaller. Just like that. There we go. Perfect. And then I'm going to duplicate this one over to the right. Turn on climate. And I'm going to rotate this. There we go. Wonderful. Can you do 3D transform text boxes? You certainly can. So if I wanted to, I can 3D transform this and rotate it. It looks a bit strange, but I can also grab the group in the background, or if I place this into that group, which I should probably do anyway. Whoop. I can select both of these layers and look at that. I probably wouldn't do it in this situation, but you can do it, right? And put that in there. All right. I've always wanted an edge-to-edge screen. Yeah, I feel like we're almost there. And there's some phones that just have the little pinhole for the camera, and then there are some that are testing edge-to-edge with no holes at all or no notches. I've heard mixed things about the camera quality because, you know, it has to go through some sort of a device. So it's tricky, but I think we're going to get there eventually. I'm going to round this out a little bit. That looks interesting. Maybe move her over. Might want to move this over a little bit. And there we go. So if we take a quick look at what this is looking like, let me get rid of this safe area at the top. We probably have some room to move this up a touch. And then there we go. So what we have now is I got to work on fix the illustrations a little bit. There's a little bit of a aliasing going on, but we have the illustrations at the top, which my goal is to have these change on every screen. So once we go to the next screen, which is the login experience, where you actually enter your details, then this at the top will change so that you can see all the things you can do using the shortcuts before you even start using the app, which could be fun. And you can flip the bubble above right. You could do that as well. All right. Curate, any way to open new XD files in previous versions of XD? Unfortunately not. And one of the main reasons is new files have new functionality that just doesn't exist in the previous versions. So it just wouldn't work. And it's a massive engineering effort to do that. Something that the team is definitely ongoing looking at, but at the moment you cannot. All right. And then down here we have our login details, right? Or at least the prompts to log in. All right, so that's looking pretty good. And now what we're going to do is we're going to work on the next screen. So when someone taps on the login with Tesla button, it's going to go over here. All right, we definitely need a shortcut or feature in XD to be able to make upper layers move directly onto their bottom layers. Upper layers move directly. I'm not exactly sure what you mean, but let me know or send me a tweet and I will take a look. I think I know, but I'm not 100% sure. All right, double-sided smartphone, that would be interesting. So starting at the top of this next screen, we might want to do something like open the frunk. And if you're unfamiliar with Teslas or electric cars, because there's no engine, the front of the car usually is a storage compartment. And because the trunk is called a trunk, a lot of people call it a frunk in the front. So, it's kind of fun. And this could be close port. And that would be the charging port, for example. All right. Now here we might want to continue with this style that we've started working with. So let's go ahead and log in with your Tesla account. And I think this is another opportunity to continue what we've been doing in the previous screen, is really emphasizing one word. We started that process with supercharge, but now what we might want to do is focus on the word Tesla. We might not want to do the whole thing like Tesla account, might be a little bit overkill, but let's just focus on Tesla here. And this will help users figure out that, hopefully, and I might want to bump this up to heavy. So this will help users figure out that they need to log in with their Tesla account. If they haven't figured out yet, this should help. So it's really emphasizing Tesla, and then it's followed by account. Like when the texts were not on the bubbles in the layers section, but visually they were. Oh, I see. Well, I mean, that's a tricky one because there are many cases where you don't want that to happen. Now, if I was inside of this group, like if I was inside of the left group, right, and then I added a text layer, then it would go inside the group by default, but I wasn't, and that was my fault because I clicked out of the group. So I made that intention. I purposely did that to click outside of the group. So it would make sense that it would, it wouldn't do that. So I get it, but yeah, it's tricky. All right, so we've got that, and then down here we have our buttons. We don't need the buttons at the moment. We only need one button, which is going to be our login. There we go. And this is going to kind of just float down here at the bottom for now. We're going to get back down here, and if we have time, I want to focus on one more thing down here. But what I want to do is add in those text fields. And as I'm designing this, we're going to talk a little bit about text fields versus buttons, because I think it's important. So here we're going to keep them nice and simple. We have this dark background. I might want to bring in some of that darkness and maybe drop like that, right? And then over top of this, maybe we'll just have another rectangle, and this will be a little bit lighter. Just kind of like an underline, right? There we go. Okay. So, this one's a little bit difficult to see. I'd probably make the background a little bit lighter, possibly. Or make this a bit darker too. I don't know, it works. And then on top of this, we're gonna write Tesla email address. And again, we're emphasizing that this is your Tesla email address, not your Bestla email address, right? So for this, we're gonna go for something like 18, and maybe we'll drop it down to medium, something like that. And then we'll probably have an icon over to the right, maybe like an envelope. I do see chat coming on in. I will take a look at that in just a moment. It might be a little bit too thin. Maybe this one. You don't want to go too thin. Whoops. You don't want to go too thin because it's going to be very small. Just like, whoa, just like that. I think that could work. All right, I'll take a look at chat in just a moment. Make this quite small so it's not overpowering. I'll get back to that in a second. All right. Hello, darkness. I agree. Where have you been? Are you all singing? All right. You're all singing. Hey, Sam, great to see you. And this will be set to white. Now, talking very quickly about text fields versus buttons. Because we chose to go with a nice rounded button, this pill-shaped or capsule shape, then we'll want to go a little bit more straight-edged for our text fields, just so that users know the difference. Now we can round this out a little bit if we wanted to, maybe 4 or 8 pixels. 8 might be too much. 4, and it's difficult to see on the background still. Maybe I'll add a little bit of a border, just a very slight border, possibly. Maybe I'll just do that. Maybe. Drop it a little bit. I don't know. I'll play around with that. We'll see. Right? You can do something like that. So you want to make sure that there's a difference between your text fields and your buttons. There we go. All right, so we have our first field looking okay. I'm going to make sure to select all this information. And this is another great opportunity for a component. So I'm going to press the plus button inside of the Properties Inspector. Again, you can do that from your document assets. And this is, I'm going to also rename this one. And now what we can do, since there will be a password field and also a two-factor authentication possibly, is duplicate this down. Oops, this should be left aligned. And by the way, you can also use a stack in this situation. So if I group this and login info, or I can also put it inside of this group as well down at the bottom. You know what? Let's do that. And that is, if I can find it, there it is. And because there's a stack enabled, it automatically pushed on in, which is always nice, right? And duplicate. Whoops. This is my main component. That's why it was updating up there as well. And this will be password. Now, in this case, you might be asking, well, why aren't you writing Tesla password? I think hopefully at this point they've got it, right? You have to log in with your Tesla account, and then we've got over here, log in with Tesla, and then Tesla email address. So I think instinctively they know at this point that they have to put their Tesla password. If they don't, we'll take a look at the data and figure that out, but I think they should probably know. And then duplicate, and this could be two-factor code, and this is not always required, so if required, do something like that, right? And then of course we want to change up these icons. So in here, back in Nucleo, let's do something like a lock, and we want to stick with that same weight that we used for, oh boy, there's a lot of, was it regular, possibly? Yeah, here we go, and paste. I keep pasting on the wrong document, and view. All right, and if you do have your icons saved as components, which I don't because they're from an icon library, then you can just grab one of those other components and drag it onto an existing component like this icon, and it would just automatically swap, which is fun and very helpful. And this could be maybe a shield for two-factor authentication, and this one here looks pretty good, and we're gonna pop this in here. And because I have a stack enabled and those icons are massive, it just pushes everything out of the way, as it's supposed to do. There we go. So taking a quick peek, it's looking pretty good. Probably needs a little bit of adjustment, but for the most part, it's looking good. I may want to adjust the spacing. 10 is probably too much. 16 might work. And then we might want to add a little bit more room below this last text field. Let's try 32. All right, I think that could work. And let's very quickly, before we move on, let's very quickly wire this up so you can see how that works. So under prototype mode right here at the top, I can go ahead and select the object that I want to trigger that interaction, and then drag it on over to the next artboard. We don't need anything fancy. We don't need auto animate because nothing's really going to be animating. We may want to transition, possibly, and then maybe we'll have it slide left and maybe ease in and out. Duration, probably don't want to go too much. Let's try 0.4. And then, not bad. Nice and quick, right? Now, the last thing I want to add before we wrap things up is right down here at the bottom. And if you take a look at their application on this login screen, there's down here, I didn't take a screenshot of it, but there's this massive privacy policy, which is probably a lot of it is required by law and that sort of thing. I want some of that to be right here under the login button. So I'm going to very quickly drag out a text field, and Bestla never stores your login information. It's only used once to retrieve your encrypted auth token. And we're going to make this a little bit smaller, something like that. We might want to center. And then another opportunity to really emphasize certain words. So never, we might want to bump that up to bold. We might want to bump up encrypted, for example. And then maybe once. You don't want to do too many of them, but just a few of them, right? And then right below this, may not have much time, but right below this is we may also want, let's say, a privacy policy. Whoops. And we can underline that so they know that this is a link. There we go. And then we might want terms and conditions. Yeah, and then maybe just to have a little bit of fun. Whoops. Where's our logo? It's over here somewhere. Copy that, and then maybe we just paste it down here. Very small, just so there's a little bit of a breaker in between these two text layers, right? There we go. All right, now there's obviously a lot more we have to do, but we will get to that probably next week. Well, maybe. We'll see. But we're going to get back to this. We have a lot of other screens that we have to tackle, but that is going to wrap it up for me for today. A big thank you to everyone who has tuned in. And Sebastian saying, can you show us at the end how you export the assets and how you organize it? Yes, when we do get to that point, I will definitely show that off. Doesn't XD have those smart guides for help? Absolutely. And you can kind of see that as it was designing, it was kind of snapping into place and telling me that things are nicely spaced apart. All right, stick around. Kyle T. Webster's coming up in just a few moments. I will be back next week with some exciting stuff. Thanks for watching, everyone. See ya.